sorry, but they don't arrange them. They just put them there so you can get exposed to those naremes and you can mix them in your head. So that you can, you have your emergent narrative, and then you have some small embedded narratives, but just the naremes, not really making any sense at all. So you can take them from that place and put them inside your emergent narrative to see where they make more sense. That's why Limbo or Journeys have so many interpretations, because they do not provide the whole package. They just provide the separated, the atomized things. So that's how you can feel it more yours, because it's you who are already, it's you who finally puts things in their real place.
Doesn't that clash with the original? But doesn't that clash with the original embedded versus like the one that the developed team is pushing on the player and the interpretation? Like if players miss.
The cool thing about these games, Limbo and Journey, is that they knew that, and so they didn't put any interpretation at all. The only interpretation in Journey is not an interpretation. The thing that originated Journey was not a game mechanic or a game embedded narrative, was a feeling. They wanted the player to feel the sublime. So, and that's how they articulated everything. So they put those small embedded narratives so the player could feel the sublime. And you feel that. I mean, everybody who has played Journey and enjoyed it has felt that. Maybe they don't have, for example, in Limbo, the same interpretation of the story. But actually, I doubt that Genova Chain, Kelly Santiago, the Limbo guys actually had an interpretation of their own. I think they have a lot of interpretations, and they somehow they pour. And you can feel that there's something there, but you cannot feel them completely, because they want you to create your own interpretation and your own story. That's what I think, at least.
Like you said, that the environment of the player, I mean, when we play the game, the environment can affect the narrative. So it can happen, it cannot happen also. For example, like you talked about interfering. We are playing a level and a friend interferes, or we need an urgency to pee and stuff like that. So while writing a narrative, how do we take care of those things? Or is it even possible to take care of the things? Like, is it possible for us, while writing a game, to take care of the environment, distraction, stuff like that? Or does it just comes naturally?
Difficult to, when you have the player as writer, you cannot understand the infinite possibilities. You cannot, to put them in your game. You just can try to understand. For example, you need to take your platform into account. You need to know if this game is going to be played at your home when you're alone, or if this game is going to be played in the metro, in the subway. So the game narrative is completely different. This Spanish game, which I recommend to all of you, is called Nihilumbra. I will write it somewhere if you want it. And it's a small platformer, very philosophical, very nihilist, and very existential on iOS, which is completely, wow. Are we going existential on iOS? What they did is they mixed channels, so the embedded narrative occupied the background. And you are playing, and texts are on the background. You can read them if you want, but you don't need to read them. It isn't forcing you to be part of this embedded narrative. So maybe if they hadn't had their platform into account, they could have gone for the Half-Life or the Valve way of doing things, is just going acoustic, going to the sound, and those texts would have been sound. And then the player would have had no control over it, no way of hearing that when they're on the metro, for example. I think we cannot predict everything, but we can try to predict. We must really understand what the player does. That you can do that by experience, by really putting a lot of thought into it, and by beta testing your game with a lot of people, data mining. But the best way for me is just to look at the player's eyes while they are testing your game. I think that is, and see what makes them tick, and see what makes them smile, and see when they do not relate, or when they feel that you're imposing them something that is not. So you will never be able to predict everything, but at least I think that you can predict a bit, and that makes great designers and writers.
One more question. Josue is available. He's at the conference, so you guys can.
Yeah, please, of course.
We have only time for one more question. We're running like really behind. So I'm sorry about that.
Hi Joshua, I'm Ayan from Ubisoft. Okay, first of all, thank you so much for this great insight. I just want to know a speculative question over here is that, for example, if I incorporate a lot of, say, a level 1 with embedded a narrative, or level 2 with augmentative narrative, how exactly do you think a game would fare if different levels have different type of narrative in the game? I want to. It's all right. What I mean is that, say, for example, different levels of the game have different type of narratives.
Yeah.
How do you think the game will fare?
How do you?
How do you think that the game will do if there are different type of narratives in the game throughout the game level? It changes. It keeps on changing.
Okay.
The type of narrative in the game, it keeps on changing from level to level. How do you think the game will do?
Wow, that's great. I mean, I think that's really difficult because we as players have expectations. We have the expectation from the very beginning of even before we start playing, just by marketing and the cover, and we have one expectation, not only about narrative, but also about the game mechanics. You can have a game that is completely morphing and completely changing its mechanics, for example. The player can stop and say, hey, that's not my game. And with narrative, I think you would need to do it with very, a lot of care. Because, wow, I mean, this evolution can feel very imposed. And one thing that does not want the player, I think, when we are playing is being imposed things. We prefer that, you know, we want to feel the writer. So we love being imposed a bit, but if this imposition keeps changing, it's like, imposition, another imposition now.
For example, when I'm playing a game, okay, right now I'm in a story mode and I have a mission to complete. Okay. I'm bored of it. Okay, let's go and a board game or something which is available to interact with other players which are around.
Okay.
So I can go ahead and do that board game for some time. If I am not feeling like going ahead with the missions, shooting people and stuff like that.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Then there could be like competition in the game. Okay.
Okay, you mean all these narratives coexisting at the same time, and you can just then that's great. Sorry, I had understood that they were like linear levels.
No, it's not linear.
Oh, I think that's absolutely great. But then you need to know that some of the narrative will never be played.
Yes,
by
absolutely.
That's great. That's like having an MMO or any RPG. You have two quests. Initial quest, one is kill the rats in the basement, and the other one is kill all the wolves in the woods. So then you get to level 50, and you play with a friend, and you say, hey, do you remember where we came from? Killing those rats in the basement? He said, no, I never killed rats in any basement at all. So you need to know that and acknowledge that when you're writing the game, because you need to know that maybe the player, one of your players, will not have played that and will not know about it. And the game needs to be great in any case. So I think it needs to be really compensated. I'm not sure if I... Okay, thank you.
All right, Josue, thank you so much. That was a fascinating talk. We really enjoyed that. Thank you, folks, for coming. Can we have a big hand, please? And we have some
So, many thanks to NASCOM. Many thanks to NASCOM for bringing me here. My first time in India. I'm already enjoying it. Thanks to Shailesh Pravdu, which is in the other room. They actually, I pity all of you, because the best speech here is taking place in the other room. It is how to turn players into poets. I mean, it's more or less the same. that I was telling you about, I think. But Karen is way more intelligent than me, and she has proved it, and I haven't. So many thanks again.